Hi everybody and welcome to the Wellingtone community latest webinar. Today we have the amazing Karen Moll. She's one of our senior trainers. She'll introduce herself properly in a second. And Karen's going to be taking us all through the new APM Project Management Qualification, or PMQ. So those of you that are working towards this qualification or looking to put this certificate onto your CV, then this is the webinar for you. We know that the APM PMQ is changing. Karen is working really hard to make sure that we're all ready for that, including you. So I'm going to hand over to Karen and she's going to take us through.
Hi everybody, great to see so many people on the webinar. I'm not terribly surprised. I've had an awful lot of questions over the last couple of months from people who are interested in finding out what the changes are. So what I'm going to do today then is I'm going to take you through, first of all, we'll just do a bit of a comparison between the current exam that's valid up until September and then what the new exam will be. Then we'll talk about more specifically what is changing, and we're there going to talk both about the structure of the exam, the type of questions and the content. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I recommend that you do in terms of preparing for the exam. Let's start with our first topic. Let's just talk about a comparison between the current exam and the new exam. So the current exam then, the structure is that you answer 10 questions in a sort of mini essay format. So they're all typed. They are what APM call long answers, right? So that you type several paragraphs per question. The current time is 3 hours and 15 minutes that you do in one sitting, as it were. And the content is currently aligned to the APM Body of Knowledge, or APM book version 7. The pass mark rate is 55%, and currently the pass rate, based on what APM has shared with us over the past year, nationally we're looking at a pass rate of the lower 40s, so less than 45%. And last year, just by comparison, it's something we're very proud of. In 2003, Wellington's overall pass rate was 77%. And in 2023, out of the people that did the homework and the assignments in the way that I had recommended they did, every single person actually passed. So that's our benchmark from last year, and what we're hoping obviously to keep up and achieve even with the new exam. But looking then at what is actually changing, so just doing a bit of a side-by-side comparison. First of all, the structure of the new exam, we're moving away from having those 10 big typed answers into having a mixed format of questions. So you'll have some multiple choice, there'll be some short typed answers, some long ones. The timing is going to change as well. The exam is made shorter, so it's 2.5 hours overall, and the questions will be split into 2 sections. So once you have completed the first section, you can kind of choose to lock that section down, and then you have the option to take up to 30 minutes break within the exam. The exam is no longer going to be aligned directly to APM Body of Knowledge. It will instead be aligned to the APM Competency Framework. Now, in itself, I don't think that is a huge difference, because they do speak the same language, as it were, and it's not like they don't contradict each other in any way. So for those that have prepared using the previous study guide, for example, the previous material, like that's still valid. It's not in any way not worthwhile, but the competency framework is, I guess, a little bit more holistic. It considers a few more topics, and it thinks about all the things that a person should be able to do, be able to know at various points in their project management career journey. And then the final change is that instead of having a fixed pass mark rate, they're instead moving to what is called the ANGOF method, which those of you that have been through the British school system, you might be familiar with. It's basically where we do not set a a fixed rate. It's about each individual person achieving above the average mark of everyone sitting the exam. And that will take into consideration that some questions here will be a little bit easier to answer. So some of the multiple choice questions, for example, compared to some of the long typed answers, etc. I'm kind of hoping not to get into too much detail in the questions and answers, particularly about how the Angoff method will be applied here. If you are interested in that, I would suggest a good old Google looking at the Angoff method, and then specific questions about that. You can find that either in APM's exam policy, or you can direct them directly to the APM. One other big change that I think is really both welcome and will be really useful is that the APM are going to change how they aim the exam, or who the exam is aimed at, I guess. So currently there are very vague guidelines around who is the ideal candidate for the PMQ. Kind of anyone can take it, as it were. That is still going to be the case moving forward, but the APM are changing and having much clearer guidelines that there is an expectation that anyone that attempts the exam should have a minimum of 2 years kind of solid practical experience of managing projects. So talk about 2 to 3 years experience, but minimum 2 years experience. And the expectation then is that you've been in a role where you are actually the project manager. It's not that you've been like a team member on and off a couple of times over the past 2 years, etc. Actually, when you look at your experience, you have collected about 2 years. Now, it's not going to be a formal prerequisite, so you don't have to apply, you don't have to prove that background. It's more as a guideline to yourself, right? And when we then take that into consideration and we look at where the exam content comes from, so at APM, they will have said, okay, so we're thinking now, what is a reasonable expectation on a project manager who has been in this role for a minimum of 2 years? Well, then we go to the competency framework and we look at, okay, what does it say there for someone who is a somewhat experienced practitioner in the field, as it were. Obviously, if you're part of an apprentice scheme or you're leading that sort of work, then whatever guidelines you have for that apprentice scheme, that will still apply. Okay, so that's kind of an exception to the rule, as it were. Looking then at where the exam content comes from, or where it will come from. So the key source, like I said, is the APM competency framework. If you're not familiar with that, I recommend have a look at APM's website. I think it's a quite accessible document. It's quite easy to read. And in the competency framework, it contains 29 competencies in total, and then they're described across a number of different roles associated with project management. They are divided into 4 areas: setting up for success, preparing for change, people and behaviors, planning, management, and deployment. And that kind of gives you almost a bit like a storyline of how the different competencies come into play as you engage with a project. Now, for the actual exam then, those 29 competencies in the framework, 5 of those are not covered in the exam. So the 29 competencies cover kind of everything associated with the successful management of projects in an organization. So 5 of those competencies aren't considered something that we should expect from project managers with minimum 2 to 3 years experience. So, for example, portfolio shaping, financial management, capability planning, and resource capacity planning isn't necessarily the project manager's role, as it were. They're more like an organizational or a PMO type of capability. So they're not part of this exam. But the remaining then 24 competencies form what we call the learning objectives, or the goal for what you should demonstrate in the exam. Those 24 competencies are then broken down into further detail in what we call learning outcomes, and there's 73 learning outcomes, and they are effectively the source of the questions that you will come across on the exam. If we look at an example of that, and those of you that have been on my webinars and my courses before, you know that I love my risk management. So risk management is always my go-to example. But in this case then, a learning objective. So one of those competencies is understand risk and issue management as the ability to identify and monitor risks. So that's both threats and opportunities, plan responses to those risks and respond to issues. And that is then broken down into, and again, those of you that have been on my webinars before, you know that I love a good scribble. Here we go. And so this learning objective is then broken down into these somewhat more detailed and perhaps more tangible learning outcomes. So as we are building the preparation course, then we look at, okay, what are the things that we need to make sure that you are able to do? We use these learning outcomes as the guide, and we look at, okay, what sort of information do you need? What content do you need? What activities do we need to do for you to be able to say, yep, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. If you're self-studying, that is basically the assessment that I want you to do of yourself as you are progressing with your preparation. Okay, so that's at a snapshot level. What is changing and what is the content for the exam? Where does that come from? Next, then, if we have a look at what the questions will be in the new exam. So we're moving away from the scenario where we have those 10 really big typed answers into a more mixed format. So you will come across in your exam all of these 4 types of questions. The first one is multiple choice. So we know multiple choice, right? It will be similar to what you may have counted in the APM PFQ. So for each question, you will have the question or statement, and then you need to select the correct option from a list by clicking on it. As far as I understand, the format will always be 1 question and then 4 options, and you select the correct one. And it will say very clearly if it is select 1 or select 2 or select all that reply, etc. Now, in each exam, you will come across 20 multiple choice questions, and each one is worth 1 mark. The second type of question is select from a list. It's kind of related to multiple choice, I would say. So it would be a scenario where you get a sentence or a statement about something, and one part of the text is missing. So it might be like a word or a part of the sentence or a couple of words. And you then need to, from a list, select which one is the missing, what is the missing part, basically, to make the statement complete. In your exam, there'll be 5 questions in that format, and they're worth 2 marks each. Okay. Then we have a somewhat different category. These 2 first ones, multiple choice and select from a list, they test that you know what something is. Right. So, for example, what is a risk? What is a risk management process? Or when you are identifying risks, it is important to do blank, etc. So it checks knowledge, awareness, what is something. Right. These other 2 options go a little bit deeper. Right, and they check more that you have the next level understanding. You don't just know what something is, you also know why it is, or how it is, or how it works, etc. So the first option there is what APM calls a short response. So that is where you need to type an answer, but it's a really short answer. So we're looking at like a word, a short phrase, or maybe a brief sentence. Right, you have 5 of those questions, and they're worth 2 marks each. And then we're on to the last one, which is probably the most similar to the type of questions that you have in the current PMQ exam. But from the way it's being described and explained now, it will be shorter and a bit more, straightforward to answer. So it's a long type response. You type the answer to the question, or you type an explanation, and the expectation there is that you provide, a good paragraph or a couple of sentences. There will be 10 of those questions, and they're worth 5 marks each. So all in all, if we add up all of the questions and the marks, so each exam will contain 40 questions. and they'll be split into 2 sections, and you have the option to take a break after you've completed the first section. And the overall mark for your exam is 90. So the maximum you can get on your exam is 90 marks. My kind of thoughts on this, as it were, I think this is definitely a move in the right direction for the APM. We've had in the past, it's been quite challenging and a bit frustrating for a lot of people that in order to be able to be successful in the exam, you both have to have all the knowledge and all the topics and content, but also previously we had to put so much emphasis on the exam technique and being able to answer those long typed answers in the right way. And we've had in the past people who clearly were very knowledgeable and have the content, have the information down pat, but really struggle with translating that into the right format for the exam. So my hope with this, and what I think will happen, is that this will make the exam a lot more accessible to a lot more people. Which and it also takes some of that I think pressure off of not just learning content, but also learning a quite specific exam technique. So something that I personally think might become a different kind of challenge with this is for a delegate how to manage their time. Because previously we've been able to say, look, you need to answer 10 questions. You got 3 hours to do it. So you should aim for 18 minutes per question. Now, because there are such mixed formats, it will be very difficult to say, there's not going to be one specific time allowance per questions, for example. So that then puts more emphasis on exam practice, knowing your own style, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, being comfortable in your ability to navigate the different question styles. And also really important as a candidate for the exam, that you take the time at the start of the exam to really look at, right, what have I got here? What are the questions? What are the different formats? And for me, based on my strengths and weaknesses, does it make sense that I start with the multiple choice, or should I start with the typed answers, etc.? And there's no one size fits all, and you need to kind of know yourself what's your preferred way of doing it. And some people, of course, they just prefer, I'm going to start with question 1, and then I'll do question 2 and question 3 and question 4, etc. And that's, of course, absolutely fine as well. But with this, I even though there is less emphasis on a specific exam technique, I still think it's really important that you do as many practice exams as you can, so you do get familiar with the different styles and that you get to know yourself and your strengths in there as well. Then looking a little bit at the content and how the exam content will change. So again, the current exam is aligned to APM BOK version 7, and the new exam is aligned to APM's competency framework. So that means that a few new topics have been introduced. You can see them listed here. So transition management or change management, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, ethics, compliance, and professionalism, and also cost control. Now, those are topics that they've been touched on before, but they're now kind of standalone topics in their own right. And I have also here mentioned solutions development, benefits management, and requirements management, because I think there's enough new content or information that we're looking at and that the exam covers, that it's, even if you have done a bit of preparation with the old study guide, etc., it is worth looking at those topics again with the new study guide. Now, arguably, some of those topics, I think sustainability, diversity, inclusion, and ethics, compliance, and professionalism, I don't think those, they should not be new topics to anybody. We should all have some sort of, baseline knowledge or awareness or understanding, appreciation, if nothing else, for those topics. So it might not be super cumbersome to study or revise for those. And it might be, I don't want to give any guarantees, obviously, but it might be the kind of topics where you can kind of get by with your your experience, your common sense, etc. But still, I would really recommend having a look at them and looking at the new study guide, or doing an updated preparation course for the new exam. And then we need to look at what topics have been excluded and taken out. And I think I accidentally gave a little spoiler there, but unfortunately, nothing has really been taken out, as in there are no sections of the previous exam where the APM have said, well, we're not covering this at all. Like, for example, we're not saying that, we used to do scope management. Scope management is no longer important, for example. That's not how it works, right? But maybe what we can say is that there's a little bit of a reduced emphasis or depth on some topics where it used to be, I don't know how to say really, where people have said before that there was an awful lot of cramming or remembering just specific terminology, etc. Now it's more about kind of understanding the general concepts and the general terms. So some of those topics where I think there is a reduced or changed emphasis, estimating is one of those, critical path and also critical chain, earned value management, they're still in there, but it's a different different emphasis again. Also, the role of the PMO has been quite reduced, and so not as much focus on kind of different types of PMOs and what services and values they bring to the project. Okay? So with this then, I think it's really important to get the point across that the new format, the new types of questions, the structure with the break-in, and all of those things will make the exam so much more accessible to so many more people, which I think is great. So in that sense, I mean, it's tempting to say the exam is going to become easier, but I think it's also really important that you balance that with, there's still that huge range of topics to cover. It's the entire APM competency framework, and you still need to know them to a depth where you can't just rattle off a bunch of words that you've randomly memorized, as it were. You do actually need to have quite a solid understanding across the competency framework. So it's not an easy exam by any means, okay? And I think previously, APM have said if you are preparing for the APM PMQ, you should assume you need to spend something like 100 hours revising and studying, etc. I can't see any reason why you would reduce that now. Okay, so it's still a big exam. It's still a big deal. It's still very challenging. Studying and revising and doing practice exams, etc., will still be absolutely necessary. Okay, so by no means does this mean you can coast through as well. Looking then at the timeline, so what will happen and when. So we've been told that at the end of July, you will be able to purchase the new student guide or study guide from apm.org. If you are taking a preparation course with Wellingtone, you do not need to buy that guide because we include it in our student pack. But if you are not preparing with Wellingtone, I really recommend that you do buy one, or at least check with your training provider if they do provide it. That is a fabulous resource, and it's been written by APM specifically to help you through the exam. On the 20th of August, all delegates who are signed up to Wellington's preparation course that starts on the 7th of October will receive their login information to our LMS, Learning Management System, and you'll get access to the pre-work and the course material. And that's also when you'll be able to order things like the study guide, etc., from us to be sent to an address of your choice. I recommend you start that pre-work as soon as possible. No time to lose, etc. And the better prepared you are before you come to the course, the easier you will find it. Okay. On the 4th of September, the new exam goes live. So the first people sitting the exam will be on that day. And then I just realized I've made an error in the next number. It's wrong here, but it's correct here. There we go. The 3rd, that's not how we say it. 3rd. There we go. excellent handwriting. On the 3rd of October, that will be the cutoff date, the last possible chance to retake the old exam. So if anyone on this webinar, if you have already sat the exam, if you didn't pass the first time and you're thinking, I don't want to mess around with the new exam, etc. I want to read the old one. You have to make sure you do it by the 3rd of October. From the 3rd of October onwards, that old exam, or the current exam, will no longer be available to anybody. Okay. On the 7th of October, then, that is when Wellington's first public preparation course starts. So for those of you that are already signed up, you should have invites and that sort of thing for that already. If not, please let us know. And for those that haven't signed up, there are still a couple of seats available, so you can do that. I recommend signing up by the 20th of August so that you get access to all the pre-work, etc. right away. And then the 4th of November, and this is really an approximate date, but it's just, and possibly an interesting date to keep an eye on. That is when the first results should be available, should be released from those first exams. So that's when we'll be able to start seeing, are there any changes in pass rates, etc., and what is the feedback from people that have attended those early September exams. Now, a note on preparation and what I would advise to do. So the first thing I would suggest, and this is a little bit controversial maybe, and it's a little bit different from how we would normally recommend when any organization, whether it's APM or anyone else, when they update an exam, normally we say, hurry, 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 take the current exam now because it's familiar, the new exam is going to be more difficult, etc. On this occasion, I'm going to say the complete opposite. So my recommendation is actually, if you have the option to wait for the new exam, I would. Okay. Yes, there are a few more topics, but some of them I think are, they're probably quite accessible topics. And the new formats, I just think it seems so much more accessible and so much less, I guess, cumbersome to most people. I think it's worth waiting if you can. If you already have started preparing, maybe you've already taken a preparation course, etc., don't worry about that. You have not wasted your time or your efforts. Any preparation you have already done and any studying you have already done, like that will work for the new exam as well. Right? What you might want to consider is just getting your hands on the new study guide once it is out, just to kind of supplement your learning, as it were, and then you should be perfectly able to take the new exam once it's available. If you haven't already taken a preparation course or you haven't started, I do really recommend it. It's the best way of making sure that you cover all the required topics and that you cover it in the right depth. And also, even though there's less emphasis on exam technique now, you do still need some, right? So having that guided and that sort of coached approach to get you ready will always be the best thing. The other things I would really recommend, read the new study guide, spend quite a lot of time reading it through. I haven't seen the final published version. It's not available yet, so I can't tell you exactly how many pages it is. The previous study guide, the textbook portion, was about 150 pages. So it's it's quite a chunky book, but it's not incredibly cumbersome to read. You will be able to buy it from the end of July from apm.org. And again, just a reminder to those of you who are taking Wellington's course, either the one in October or the one in November, you do not need to buy that study guide. It is included in your course pack. Okay, so Wellington people, do not go and spend extra money on the study guide. We will give it to you. For everyone else, it's worth paying for it. It's a fab resource. And the other thing I would say is do as many practice exams as you can. There are practice exams included in the study guide with examples of all the questions. I do also think there will be something made available from APM's website that you can have a look at. If you do Wellington's course, there are lots of practice exams included in that course. We do practice questions every day in the course, and there are bigger practice exams included in the course. And every single person that submits it to the trainer which for the October course is myself. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. It's up to you to judge. But it's me anyway. Everyone that submits those practice exams will get individual written feedback as well. So to really make sure that you're coached and ready for the exam. And then whilst we're on that, then I'm just going to talk a little bit more about our course, because I know a few people who are on this webinar had asked specifically about it. Now, on here, you got the QR code. So if you got your phone handy, you can just scan that and get more information. But our course, it's called Project Management for Practitioners. It covers the entire syllabus, of course. It contains more practice exams than what you can find in the study guides. And like I said, you get marked and feedback on all of those exams. Now, we have been delivering PMQ preparation for quite some time, and in that we've learned quite a few lessons. One of the things we have learned is that it's doing the entire course, as it were, in 1 week or in a really short period of time doesn't really work. It's too much. You don't get a quality learning experience. So we break it out over a couple of weeks. Okay, so we start by giving you access to the LMS and your pre-work in advance, and we give you guidance on how to revise, how to look at it. You've got a couple of activities on the LMS, and there are practice exams to get you ready for that before you even come to the course. And then the course itself, in kind of week 1 of the course, as it were, for example, Monday, Tuesday, or it could be Wednesday, Thursday, but typically Monday, Tuesday, that's day 1 and 2 of the course. After we finish day 2, you get your first practice exam. You then have a couple of days to do that, to submit it, and you then get your feedback. The following week, we meet up again, and we do day 3 and 4 of the course, and then you get another practice test. Then we usually take a week's break, during which time you don't have time to revise. You've got other practice tests that you can do there and again get feedback on. You also have the option, if there are specific questions or topics that you struggle with, myself or my colleague is available to help you or to give you some individual coaching there. And then week 4 in this scenario, and we try to schedule it towards the end of the week, we will do the exam. So included in Wellington's course is the exam, and it will be invigilated by us. So you don't need to purchase additional vouchers or register for it or download anything on your computer or anything like that. It's kind of a one-stop shop, as it were. Now, after the course, there is, so APM is saying currently what they think will happen is it's probably going to take 8 weeks for them to mark every exam and then give you the results. Obviously, this is a learning curve for them as well. So in the beginning now, if you are in one of those October courses, for example, it might take a little bit longer, it might take a little bit shorter, but let's assume 8 weeks or 2 months, and then you will have your result. Now, I think we do have a couple of questions, so we will go through those. I'm just going to have this screen up. So if you do have any questions or anything that is not covered today, or you're interested either in our course or a specific topic, feel free to, you can check out our course here. You got the QR code here. I'll leave it up in case you want to scan it. You can connect with me via email. You got my details there. karin.mall@wellington.co.uk, and you can also, if you scan this QR code, you can get access to my calendar, and you can book a 15-minute conversation with me if you have any specific questions about either your preparation or your plans, or if you're planning something for your team or whatever it could be, and I would be delighted to help you with that. But with that, I'm going to turn my camera back on, and there we are, and there's Emma as well. Very good. So Emma, do we have any questions? Has anything come through?
Yeah, we do have a couple of them. First of all, and I think this is going to be a TBD, but what is the cost of the new study guide?
That is a very good question. Yes, they haven't actually confirmed it. The previous one was £30. So I presume it's going to be something like that, actually. But yeah, I don't know for sure. And it's not available yet. I do need to emphasize that if you go on the website now, and the old study guide is still available, I think it's going to be phased out over the next couple of weeks. Just do make sure when you that you buy the right one, the new one. As well.
And the other question is, does the study guide replace the APM body of knowledge? And so from my perspective, absolutely not. The study guide is a study guide for this exam. It definitely does not replace the body of knowledge. In fact, the body of knowledge is starting to be revised into the next version at the moment. So there's a lot of work going on at APM to do that and update the content. The body of knowledge is designed to be a holistic view of the world of project management, and the study guide is very much including, as Karin said, the practice exams, the test types, the examples and things that will help you to pass the exam. I think, do you want to add anything to that, Karin?
APM have been quite specific about the relationship between those. So they're kind of saying that the APM body of knowledge isn't a suitable tool to revise for the exam. Okay, because it doesn't, it kind of covers everything, like Emma said, but it doesn't cover it in the way that it's talked about in the exam, and it doesn't go into enough depth. So even with the current exam, actually, I often get the question, should I be reading the APM body of knowledge, or do I need to memorize it? And what I've told people in the past, and what the APM are now is the same for the new version. Actually, you probably want to put the APM body of knowledge aside for the purpose of the exam. Instead, use the study guide, especially alongside a preparation course. But very good question.
Different question. Will there be a streamlined exam option for anyone with Prince 2 as before, with the Prince 2 practitioner, not foundation? Because before, if you'd done the Prince 2 practitioner, you could kind of, go straight into that streamline option.
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. I haven't been given that information. I think that will be, it is best to check that with directly with APM. Wellingtone has never offered that option, as it were. We have only ever been able to do the full exam. So yes, I'm not actually sure. Sorry, check with APM directly.
Yeah. And I guess one of the questions that we're going to get asked at some point is around the competence framework. So the APM competence framework has existed for a lot of years. It gets revised on a regular basis. In terms of accessing that, if you did want to go and have a look at what that is and what that looks like, if you haven't come across it, that if you have an APM account, so a free kind of APM login that you can just set up, which gives you access to things like the community and things like that. There is a version of the competence framework that you can actually drill into. So you can kind of do a bit of a little self-assessment. You can have a look at some of the roles, and you can have a look at some of the competencies to a degree. So it's worth, if you haven't seen it or don't know about it, and this is something you are considering, then that's a good starting position, is go and have a look. You'll be able to see all the competencies. You'll be able to see all the roles that it relates to, and that should then help to kind of makes then logical sense why this exam is now mirroring that as opposed to the body of knowledge, because then it becomes about skills and experience as much as just having being able to kind of regurgitate the words.
I agree. And also if anyone on the call, if you're like a team leader or a learning and development rep or anything like that, and you struggle with who to put forward for the exam, etc., that can be quite a useful tool for you as well. So just see, is this a person that is kind of up where those competencies are, as it were? Are they miles off? Okay, well, they're probably not quite ready yet, right? So
and then one last question. You mentioned that you can do the exam questions in any order with the 30-minute break. Is it a case of you can do 2 sections of your choice and then have a break and then continue with the other 2 sections?
Yes. Okay. So so the exam is will be split into 2 parts. And as far as I understand, there will be a mix of all 4 types of questions in each part. So in part A, you'll get, 5 multiple choice, 5 types, a mix of them. And you need to then complete that whole section before you can take your break. Okay. And once you have completed that section, if you do go for a break, that section will be locked down. So you can't go for a break and then come back and update it, etc. It will be 2 very distinct parts. From what I've said so far, though, it's the same interface as before. So Surpass, if anyone has seen it before or taken an exam with APM before, I personally think it's a great exam tool. I'm usually quite critical of anything like that, but I think it's very user-friendly, and it's very easy to see, like on the screen, what questions you have answered, which ones, if you've flagged any, and you can either move to the next question by clicking the next button, as it were, as you would in any quiz or similar, or you can kind of use the panel of questions to just click, I want to go to question 8 or question 9 or you know, whatever it could be. So yeah, within each part or each section, you can go back and forth between questions. Once you have completed part A, that is locked down. You can then do your break if you want to, and then part 2 will start.
Okay. This is a learning curve for us. It's a learning curve for the APM. It's new to everybody. We do know that people have piloted the new exam. They've passed it. So some feedback has been received from that and changes have been made. So I think there's probably a little bit of patience required in terms of all the different nuances and the different options and routes to both the PMQ and also the route to chartership and how that impacts that. But I think the APM have been, very communicative. They've been very open about the changes. So I think it is just a case of having a little bit of patience for them to be able to, I would say, get through the first round from that first set of exams. And then, we will, when we have more information, we will do a companion article to go with this webinar. We will post the webinar, and as we get more information, we will update that article, and we have all of your details, so we'll make sure that anybody that's attended gets that further information, so when we know how much the study guide is, we can add that into that article, almost as a set of FAQs as information kind of becomes more available. But hopefully everybody's found this really interesting, and giving you some clarity on all the rumours that you've been hearing. So thank you so much, Karin. I don't know if you want to just say some final words before we let everybody go.
I hadn't prepared any final words. I probably should. Yes. No, again, I think I want to emphasize, I think this is really exciting. And I think this is definitely a good change. And I think it shows that APM have been listening to the feedback that people have been giving them about the previous exam, and I think this will definitely make it more accessible to more people. So it's I think it's a fab thing. It's quite exciting. I look forward to the first course in October as well, and hopefully I get to see some of you guys there, or if not, in the near future. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Stay in touch with Wellingtone and continue the conversation. Thank you.